Okay, this is a pretty wonky setup, and my phone might fall over. I don't even know where's my camera. Okay, there's where I need to look. Okay. Um, I left my camera and equipment, etc., at the textile museum, so I don't have my usual tripod setup. So I have the phone jerry-rigged with a lamp, and yeah. So, anyways, hi, how are you? How was your day? My day was pretty good. It was very good. I went to the textile museum today for the first time, and I got there, and the gal that is my contact was a little late on the bus, so she messaged me and let me know, and it was like 3 minutes, not even. And she got there, and she goes, okay, where do you want to start? And I was like, okay, well, I have them in number order, so we can start number order. And so we started going through, and so the way it usually works at most museums is that they will either have, them already pulled and set out, or at least some of them pulled and set out, and then they'll hand them over to you. They'll make sure you have everything you need, and then they usually just kind of step off or step away or step to the side and do their stuff. So as I mentioned yesterday, I have 36 textiles that I wanted to see. And I'll say technically the bad news is I'm probably not going to get through all 36, but it's for the really good news, which is because unlike most other places where, and this isn't a criticism, but it's just kind of the way it works, where people just give you the textiles and then walk away, this curator is working with me one by one by one on all of these textiles. And as we're doing that, she's pulling up the records that they have. Now, most museums will have, sometimes they're combined into one, but usually two different types of records. They'll have the curatorial notes, which are any kind of notes about exhibitions that a piece has been in. If a piece has been featured in an article or a book, it'll be in there. Or if it is comparable to an item that is in a book or has been in a museum, it'll reference it just sort of for reference points. Also in the curatorial notes, you'll sometimes have dating information. If it has been radiocarbon dated, the radiocarbon dating report will be in there. I'm trying to think what other, any kind of notes, like we discovered that this was, this black here tarnish was actually silver. Like any kind of notes about the document will be in the curatorial notes. Now the interesting thing that I've discovered is that most museums, their online databases, which have the objects where you can search online, usually do not have the full curatorial notes. It'll have maybe one or two sentences. Sometimes it'll be a really nice description that they've decided to add in there. But it is usually not the full on, here's everything we know, all of the cross-referencing, here's, some of the speculations that have been made behind the scenes, because obviously they don't want to just put out speculations. They want to put out what they believe to be or facts or very strong hypotheses. And then the second type of record that the museums will usually have is the record of provenance or acquisition. And so that will be who donated it to the museum. If they can tell you where they got it from, they will tell you that information. Most of the time, and this is something that I was very surprised about when I first started working with museums, you imagine that all of these items have provenance that can be documented all the way to the point of origin, right? Like this thing was dug out of this grave number such and such, out of this grave site in this archaeological dig, and so that's how we know what it is. That's not usually the case, at least with most textiles that I have seen. Oftentimes it was like, this was bought from this person, which was bought from this person, which was bought from this person before the age or before the date of such and such. And sometimes those dates are specifically cited because they have to do with international laws, where you don't have to prove origin or have to worry about things for legal reasons. And then sometimes it's just like, we know that they had it sometime before 1976. Sometimes the curatorial notes and the provenance or acquisition notes are also all one thing. And that's what the Textile Museum has. So the curator basically pulled up all the curator notes, the curatorial notes, all of provenance and acquisition notes, and I was able to see everything, which is pretty awesome. So we would pull the textile in front of us, we would pull up the notes, we would read everything that the museum knows or thinks that they know or, has been suggested or posited or whatever. Then she and I would discuss all of those notes and what we think we know and what is of curiosity. And then she was actually, because she was very excited about the microscope that I have, and she was very excited about sort of the scope of my research. In fact, she really enjoys doing printed textiles. And so she said, man, she kept thanking me. That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, do you understand what a gift it is for me to be able to walk into the textile museum or any of these museums that I'm going to, and for you to give me your time? Like, it is incredibly wonderful that you're thanking me that I've brought these opportunities to you and given you the excuse to sit down, but no, thank you, right? So she indicated to me at the beginning of things that when she works with her students, she really likes to challenge her students to critically think about, what it is that they're looking for, why they're looking for it, why they're concluding the way they are concluding, what other alternate explanations there could be for things. And so she said, I'm going to challenge you today in the next couple of days to critically think about everything. And okay, this is good crying, right? Like, the opportunity to sit down with a world-renowned curator at a world-renowned institution and shoot the breeze, talk shop, to personally one-on-one work with somebody, to see what we can learn about these textiles one by one. I am rarely at a loss of words about how incredible this opportunity is, how incredible the gifts are that every one of these people that is giving me time and facilitating this whole trip and this research, from the people that are helping scheduling all the way up to the funder that has funded this. Words, I don't even know. So good crying this video. Good crying. So it was pretty fun and interesting because I got to help change one of the entries that you guys see online now. Okay. So there was it was a silk, but it was listed as cotton. That's not that big of a deal. We did change that in the entry. But it was listed as gilded, as having gold leaf applied to it. And there was not gold leaf. So she said, well, how do you know? How can you tell? And so I actually pulled up some gilded textiles from other museums that I've been to. And I said, so when it's gilded, you'll see two things. The first thing is that you'll see a binder or a glue, some kind of adhesive to which the gold should be sticking upon the textile. We're talking about gilding, like applying gold leaf or gold flecks to the textile, not the process of wrapping a filament, whether it's a silk filament or linen or whatever. We're not talking about wrapping the thread with gold and then, weaving or embroidering with gold. We're talking about the application of gold to textiles. So I said, when that happens, there always has to be some kind of binder or adhesive. And let me show you what that looks like oftentimes. Now, the binder, it's technically possible that all of the binder could have worn off. But usually, even when the binding agent has mostly worn away, you can kind of still see where it was. So I showed her a couple of examples of that, and then I said, and then there's no gold leaf. She said, well, what does gold leaf look like? So I showed her some examples of what gold leaf looks like under a microscope up close. And I said, it kind of looks like this. And usually because the binding agent oftentimes, but not always, has a reddish or even a pinkish hue, it tends to change a little bit of the color of the gold underneath a microscope, not to the naked eye. And so I'm kind of walking her through the process. And I said, so see, there's not only is there no adhesive or binding agent anywhere on this area that it is talking about, but there's also no evidence of any gold leaf or flecks of gold anywhere, as you can tell under the microscope. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she said, well, like, why is it giving off that gold color? And I said, well, because it is made of silk. And silk has a luminescence. And this comes from Serena, so thank you, Serena. And I kind of talked about the luminosity of silk and how it almost conducts light. And so I showed her, again, some other examples of silk under a microscope, and then I showed her that, and I said, so basically the goldish color that you're seeing is really just the natural color of the silk as it is reflecting and conducting the light that are in here. And so we changed the entry so that it no longer reflects that it has gold pigment or that it is gilded, and just indicated that it has been, because it has been inked, hand-drawn, so opinion and showed them how I thought that, and they agreed. How did this happen? It's like not real. Very exciting. So, the other thing is, yet again, she's like, well, how come you didn't ask for such and such items? And I was like, because I didn't find them in the collection. So she pulled them out, and they were 2 Egyptian mummy wraps, which were amazing. One was dated from the 7th to the 4th century BCE, and the other was dated from the 4th through the 2nd century BCE. And so we got to look at those, which were really, really, really cool. And then I mostly looked at textiles that were from the Indian subcontinent today, just because that's kind of how it happened to be ordered. And then when we pulled out one drawer, there was a bunch of them, so we just kind of did them all at the same time. But at the very end of the day, I said, okay, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's do number 1771, T1771, if you want to look it up in the Kotzen collection. And it was a 13th to 14th century Lower Rhine, Germany printed textile that has been cited, or something similar has been cited by, drumroll please, Robert Ferrer. You guys know I love me some Robert Ferrer. And so I looked at it, and it is stylistically very similar to the other ones that Donald King refers to in Collected Textile Studies, that he refers to as being forgeries. And so I was able to have a very good conversation with her about how a lot of those textiles are considered suspect, and explained why and what the reasoning was and what the findings were. And so we looked for some of the red flags on the textile itself. There were some red flags that would require some more investigation that Donald King cites. Some of the things I agree with King on, and some of them I'm like, you didn't have as much exposure to printed textiles from Europe at the time in the 1960s when you wrote it that I think we have today. So things like him saying certain colors couldn't be used. Well, that's not entirely true. There were more colors used than that. But I'm getting off the topic. So don't know that. I am concluding that it was indeed a forgery. But she was actually really excited and talked about how it is really important to have that transparency. And that it doesn't necessarily reduce the value or the worth or the importance of the object. It's just different and in a important in a different context, which of course I wholeheartedly agree with her on. And so it now reads in the curatorial notes that it is possibly suspected to be a forgery. And then she asked me to get her the citations from Donald King. She just put a little note in there. She knew the title, but I'm going to give her some more. And then she said, well, are there any contemporary writings from the 13th or 14th century, that's when this was dated, that talk about printed textiles in Germany? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, here's the SCA part of me coming out. I said there is a late 14th, possibly early 15th century manuscript from the nuns in the Klosterberg convent of St. Catherine. And they have recipes about printed textile pigments and dyes and inks, whatever you want to call it. They talk about the process by which you should print textiles, etc. Then I talked about Cennini, and I talked about Peter Manson, which is also a Swedish manuscript that's contemporary with Cennini and the nuns sometime in that 14th to 15th century. And she's like, could you get me all of those citations? I want to put those in here too. So it's like really surreal that I am now helping to contribute to the overall body of knowledge. I'm not inventing anything by giving her citations or I'm not the first that has known about these things, but to talk to curators of amazing institutions like these about these things is like, yeah, I got to come up with the word because I keep going like mind-blowing and I'm speechless and I don't know what to say. So if I don't know what to say, I should get the heck off of this little vlog. But this is my daily vlog. It is Wednesday. It's day 1 at the Textile Museum. I have 2 more days. We made it through 10 total textiles. That includes the 2 extra textiles that she brought up from Egypt that I wasn't expecting to. So that's 8 out of 36. So I got 28 left. It was really good English. I have 28 or so textiles that I want to get through. I am totally at peace if I do not get through all of the total original 36, especially given that there is this one-on-one counseling and consultation and coaching that is going on with this curator. So I've kind of organized my things. I have 3 main categories of textiles left that I want to look at, and then like 2 random ones. The random ones are, one's a French, primarily embroidery, but it apparently has some painting according to the description, so I want to take a look at that. That one may not turn out to be anything super exciting, but that one's dated as the 15th century. And then I want to look at I think it's 14th century silk velvet that I believe was originally gilded. So I want to see if we can find that on there. That one also may turn out to be a dud. Those are my 2 randos. The rest are a lot more Indian subcontinent, but I'm going to prioritize that last because that's primarily what I looked through already. And so, not that they're not important, but if I want to get a nice mix. Then the other category is pre-Columbian, primarily from Peru, but there's one that's either Peru or Chile. And they all date back to as far back as like the 2nd century BCE through about the pre-Columbian 15th century. So that's the main thing I'm going to probably work on tomorrow. And then if I get through those, which I have a lot of them, I don't know if I will, but if I get through those, I will start, or on Friday, I will start in the Far East Asia, primarily China and Japan. There are several more textiles. A couple of kasod? I don't know how to say that word. Somebody correct me in the comments. A couple of kasod, and a couple other fragments of things. And then one looks like maybe it's the fragment of a sleeve, possibly of a kimono, but I'm not entirely sure. So, just going to keep working and keep sharing with you guys. And hopefully soon I can start posting some pictures of some things. Oh, I don't know if I said this earlier. I hope I hope I'm not repeating myself. But at one point she's like, so what are you working on this for? This is for your PhD, right? And I'm really laughing about that because I have gotten that question about, I think, from every single curator that I've worked with. And then I have gotten that comment about this is PhD work from about 10 or 15 people. So it's just very funny. Not that it couldn't or shouldn't be, not that it may not be one day, although that's not my focus, but it just kind of cracked me up. There's this sort of assumption that like you would necessarily be motivated to do this because you have to write a paper or you are, a thesis or a dissertation. So I said, nope, just because I've got a research grant. And she said, well, you are gonna look into publishing, right? And I said, yeah, I've already had offers from 2 publishers to that they would love to see some kind of manuscript, and then of course I'm working on some just journal publication pieces for submission. She said, okay, good. So oh, I forgot to tell you guys. So at one point I started talking about how I feel that there needs to be a classification system for printed and painted textiles, and I explained how, especially in English, and this is, in some ways, it is almost a uniquely English problem, but also because it's an English problem and that English has been the predominant language in which many of these research papers are written, it is now becoming a worldwide problem. The problem is, in the English language, the word print has one very technical meaning, but has been used very broadly for things. And so right now when we say, oh, it's a printed textile, sometimes it's not printed at all. Sometimes it's painted, sometimes it's resist dyed, mordant dyed, it could be gilded, it could be flocked, it could be whatever, but it all kind of falls into one category. So I was explaining to her about how if you look at the last 140 to 160 years of research, particularly in English, there are some problematic issues that arise with anybody that's doing research when we talk about printed and painted textiles, because everything is getting lumped into this category, and so it's really important that we do a classification system. And she said, oh yeah, I absolutely agree. We definitely need a classification system. And so I said, I've been working on one, and here's what I'm working on. And she's like, I have somebody at Sieta that I think you need to contact, and I'm going to hook you up because I think they would be very interested in this. So I have no idea what that means in terms of what they would be interested in this means. But I do know what Sieta is. I'm pretty excited about that. Who knows? They may or may not want to talk to me about the subject. But that was exciting. Could be very, very exciting. Either way, I'm going to tell people there needs to be a classification system. So we'll be working on that. So there you have it. That was day 4 of the trip. Day 1 at the Research Textile Museum. And today is Wednesday. And I'm exhausted. Is learning a lot, can it really be tiring? Because I'm busted. I am really tired. It may also be a little bit of the COVID leftover. I've got COVID fatigue, so. All right, I've babbled long enough, and I didn't cry too much in this one. I deserve all the nicknames you're gonna give me. So, all right, that's it for now. I'm going. I am gonna do my best to do a vlog tomorrow night. But again, no promises. All right, I love you. Bye.